settled? Okay, if everyone would please rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is this is the public hearing for the Appleton Hamilton subdivision.
Clifford Bufo.
Here.
Art Christie.
Here.
Joanne Cow. John Horn.
Here.
Alan Shiner.
Here.
Sam Spada.
Here.
Vivian Welton.
Here.
Do you want me to read the letter?
Yes, please.
Notice is hereby given to the town of Shandaken that the town of Shandaken Planning Board will hold a public hearing pursuant to section 274 and section 276 of the state law and as prescribed in the district schedule of area and bulk regulations of the Shandaken Town Code for the purpose of the following applicant. Regarding a subdivision to the applicant, Peter Appleton and Elizabeth Hamilton, for a parcel located at 137 Miller Road, indicated as SBL 25.1-2-8.400, located in a residential zone 3. Peter Appleton and Elizabeth Hamilton are applying for the subdivision in order to make 2 lots. The public hearing is scheduled for December 8th at 6:45. I have one email that I can read aloud.
Yes, please.
This is from Jonathan Berman, and he is at 123 Miller Road. Peter and Liz Appleton are responsive and friendly neighbors who are entirely supportive of their plans to build a new home for themselves. They are proactive in approaching us and have shown us the plans. Our understanding is that they've taken steps to ensure that anticipated buildings and open spaces will not be visible from ours. We appreciated that and we're pleased they will remain neighbors. Jonathan Berman and Monica, and I'm going to say her last name is wrong, but it's Bachara. Sorry if I mispronounced it. I would plan to call him at 6:45, so he's just listening from out of town.
That's who's on the phone.
That's who's on the phone. Is there anyone else?
No, if you guys just want to explain briefly what you're doing. You don't have to go through the whole thing.
Oh, sure,
but
sure.
just for the public.
So, we have a 15-acre parcel at the end of, sort of up behind the Zen Center area. And we have our property. When we built our home, we took sort of the bottom 3 acres that were most acceptable and built our home there. And so now we want to put a road kind of along the edge of that and build another smaller, empty nesting kind of a home up there. So that's dividing it into 2, so it'll be sort of 6 and 8. And that's the gist of it.
Is there anybody here about this subdivision? No. You are?
Just as a neighbor.
Okay. Do you have any concerns or questions?
No, I was hoping that we'd see a map.
I can tell you
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
It's our property, but it's their property. So
You guys are
we're on
on
the
top.
opposite side.
Yeah.
you know.
I thought we were
You can unfold that up here on the table and then could.
Sure, okay. Wait, where do you want it?
Just right there, probably is a good spot. You guys can come up and take a look.
I'm not even sure, I'm not even sure where you guys are.
You're there.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so basically you guys are up at the end of the road, as I understand it. So our existing house is here. And so Miller's down around that 5th floorboard somewhere. And then this is Michael Rogers, who's at the bottom parcel from the, he is right on the end of Miller Road. and our joint driveway comes up here, and this is a little cul-de-sac, and our neighbor goes here.
Jonathan, who's on the other
He's on the line,
line,
right?
his house is probably
Right
here. Here?
Here?
Yeah, you're right.
And so what we're talking about doing is extending, our driveway goes here. So we're talking about extending it up to here, to the sort of middle of the property, and doing something here, reserve here. And as you can see, the slope goes up like this, right? So we're basically, this was our best septic spot. So that's what we're going to here. So over here, we're in now, like you're heading down into the So what we're doing is that we led with consent, sorry.
Yeah, we laid out our location based on
Yeah,
that.
and then we're basically sort of, actually a little more tilted, but it's kind of built into the thing,
Into the
built
hillside.
into the hillside.
Yeah.
And keep it very low.
One floor.
One floor and a
I
basement.
assume at some point we won't be able to use
That's
that.
it, yeah. So that's basically, and then we've got like a little, two sites split up into sort of two bedrooms here, one bedroom here, theoretically, keeping it one and one. And it's, yeah,
Yeah,
like a
so-
little, this is actually not twice the scale, so that we can have our kids.
Yeah, so
Not necessarily.
when the boys come to visit.
So that's basically the plan. So we're planning
My workshop is there, so I work at it around.
That's the plan.
Yeah, we just came to see what you're doing.
Yeah, no,
We knew it doesn't interfere with us.
Yeah, I don't think you'll have any impact.
To this line?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess you're.
And you guys have, this is sort of a buffer zone, or I mean, it's like an S-1 lot, right?
Yeah. We're way up
If
here.
somebody had approached us to buy 5 acres, I don't know where.
I'm sorry, who?
Somebody approached us to buy 5 acres.
Oh, yeah,
I wonder
yeah.
if that was
Yeah,
Dave.
Dave.
Yeah.
Yeah. We loved it.
Yeah.
Saving our people. We wouldn't have access.
No, I'm not, that's interesting. Oh, no, I just he was selling it too low.
Yeah, well, no, I think it's, no, when he approached these guys, he was on the edge.
No, this was about building a place.
Oh, for himself.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
what
he
he
was.
was.
His dream house is the radio And, you know, our house just feels ridiculous, you know, it's 6,000, wide, you know, it's ridiculous. Now that the boys are gone, we're like, this is nuts.
If that's it from the public regarding this subdivision, do any board members have any comments? Yes. You said no?
I do not.
Then, I'm going to motion to close the public hearing.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
4 minutes early. We'll start the regular meeting at 7.
Yeah, we need to go.
We gotta hang out. Sorry. Hi, can you hear me? Hello? Oh, sorry, good night. The public hearing's over. Yeah.
Not that I know
Because it was, it did come out last week.
of.
Oh, yeah.
They sent you something?
Yeah, but not official, so we,
So what, that's
we'll
the
go
next
through
month?
everything, yeah.
She doesn't tell me.
He's accused.
Yeah.
I'm only asking you because you're closer.
I think we're gonna be real We're gonna open the regular meeting now.
Christopher Buffo,
Here.
Art Christie,
Yes.
Joanne Taub, John Horn,
Here.
Alan Shiner,
Here.
Sam Spada,
Here.
Vivian Welton,
Here.
Very good. Everyone have a chance to look over the notes. Any comments, changes?
I move the minutes be accepted.
all in favor?
Aye.
Communication. Yeah. Let me just make sure, yeah. The first page starts a public hearing.
Probably have it here.
All right. So next up, we've got the Rail Explorers discussion. I first want to start by saying somehow a rumor got started in town that we're trying to shut the Rail Explorers down. I assure you, we are not. This is, everyone's happy with the success of the business. It's great for the town. There were just some complaints from some adjacent people, and we just wanted to start a discussion on how they could possibly be addressed to the benefit of everyone. Dennis Doyle suggested that we all get together and have a meeting, so here we are. I think mostly it seems to center around hours of operation. I know when we initially met with you about opening up, the discussion was that it was going to end at 4, and I know it's running much later than that now. And then the other thing was noise. A lot of it really just revolves around hours of operation. People just want to go a little quiet by their homes. So I'll open the floor up for for you. What are your hours? What are your desired hours? What are your
Yeah, so maybe if I may,
yeah?
I'm really nervous about either addressing the board standing up and/or missing the audience and missing the camera. Is there any possibility
There's a mic right here.
that Mary Joy, you and I can sort of come up, take a sit down and have a conversation about this? Is the board comfortable doing that?
Sure.
So why don't I do this? If I'm going to borrow, I'm going to give you the good chair.
We just have to be careful on spaces in the mic in this room.
Okay,
So
we'll try
this
to,
is-
you can
this
let
is
us
your
know.
mic?
We can just attach that mic and use it up here, right? We can do
Yeah.
that. Here, Joy, and I'm gonna, you take that one, and I'll take this one, we'll move it around a little bit. Thank you, Meryl.
Don't forget to identify who everybody is.
Yep, okay. So, and I want to thank you. Does this work for everyone? You want to do that?
I think we all know Dennis. Can we get everybody to identify themselves and have
Sure.
this conversation?
So, my name's Dennis Doyle, I'm the planning director for Ulster County, and I just wanted to thank the board for this opportunity to come up and talk about the operation. And I'll let the folks from Rail Explorers identify that stuff.
Hi, I'm Mary Joy Liu, owner of Rail Explorers and my husband and partner.
I'm Alex Catchpool, co-owner of Rail Explorers.
Okay, so I want to start with just to give you sort of a history of how we got here. And that may somewhat explain in terms of the county's interest in how we arrived at Rail Explorers. I want to go back quite a ways. I'm going to go back to the 70s. When the county acquired the railroad in the 70s. They acquired the railroad as a rail excursion tourism railroad back in the 70s. And we worked hard to essentially make that work. And what ended up happening is
Hey,
we...
Dennis, can we stay focused more on like?
We can, because this sets the plan, I want to set the stage, right? And so what we ended up doing is we had a 30-year lease with the IDA. We surplus the property to the IDA, and a 30-year lease with the IDA with CMRR. When that lease ran out, we were disappointed with respect to the amount of effort that CMRR had put into the line as a whole. And so we began to think whether or not, how we could look at the line a little bit differently in terms of what it could be used for. And we issued something called an Rfp Request for Proposals, and we looked at those responses. And effectively what we had is we had two sets of proposals. We had a proposal for the eastern end, which is in the Kingston area, and we had a proposal for the western end, which is what the current permit operation is for the Rail Explorers. We examined those proposals. We chose CMRR to do the work on the eastern end, and we issued a permit for that. And it is a permit, and we chose Rail Explorers for the western end, and we issued a permit for that. That permit has a date when it's going to run out. It has been extended, so it runs out December 22nd, December of 22. So that permit is currently in force, and it runs out December 2022. When we went through this process, similar to work that we did with respect to CMRR, we had conversations with the town in terms of the applicability of some of its laws and rules, and it was determined that essentially that the railroad operations and the railroad-like operations, including Rail Explorers, were not subject to the local zoning statutes. They were essentially pre-existing non-conforming uses, and they weren't subject to local zoning. So when we went through the approval process, there was approvals that were done as it relates to the site plan work that was done at the museum, and that went through a site plan review process. The museum actually made that submittal. We went through that process, et cetera. And then when we looked at the permit has specific things in it. The most important things, and we provided the board a copy of that permit, so you have a copy of it. The most important things in that permit is essentially compliance with local statutes. And generally those are statutes of what is generally termed as applicability, general applicability, such as building permits and stuff like that, but not necessarily the zoning statute. And then also there are some things in there with respect to disruption in terms of noise. And there's a conversation with respect to not hours of operation, but hours of operation as it relates to some of the things that would be most detrimental to the quality of life issues to adjoining landowners. And then as operations went into effect, then there was a continued conversation with respect to the adjoining landowners in terms of what we could do for noise abatement. And I'm going to let Mary Jo Luke have a conversation with you about what they've done so far and what other things that may be possible. But recognizing the fact that the county's permit is in place and in effect, and it doesn't change until December 22nd, December of 22. Does that help? Does anybody have any questions about that? No. Okay.
What year are you talking about, ending?
December of 22.
50?
22.
2050?
Next year.
Next year.
Next year. Next December.
Oh.
So
Yes.
Well, I can perhaps address those concerns. So,
And guys, to be clear, we're just trying to find a happy
Yep.
medium where
Yep.
everybody, that's all. We're not.
in terms of impact of our operations on noise, of not creating noise with adverse impacts to the adjoining landowners, this was brought to our attention relatively early in the piece. We began operations in Memorial Day of 2018, and I think it was later that year, we actually were asked to and went ahead and install a fence between the rail and an adjoining property. We also instigated what we call a quiet zone, running from Route 28 for about 1.25 miles, 1.5 miles, along the railroad through all of those adjoining properties. And by quiet zone, what that means is that we request that the riders slow down, the customers who are on these vehicles slow down, which reduces the noise of the bikes on the track. They're also instructed by the guides who we train very carefully to look out for this sort of situation. They're instructed when they leave after the Route 28 crossing to please observe those quiet zone signs. If they're playing music on some kind of portable speaker, we ask them to shut that off or turn it down. We ask them to keep I think the phrase that we use is the hooting and hollering down, until we're through the quiet zone. And those instructions are given verbally to each group of customers on each bike as they depart the Route 28 crossing. And my understanding was that, or our understanding was that, having put those mitigation efforts into place, that things had improved somewhat. We're very open to continuing to work with the town and with the neighborhood, with the residents, with the county to continue those efforts. And there are some ideas that we have which can be put into place in the future. But that's kind of where we're at right now. We do have some other ideas which I'm happy to elaborate on if you don't have any questions on what has happened up to this point.
I think that also when Rob Stanley called us in the middle of the summer and said, hey, look, you guys you put on a 9 o'clock tour. We were very lucky that when we first came to just introduce ourselves to the town, we had no idea, we hadn't even started running yet, and so we, put forward some thoughts, 5 days a week, 4 tours a day. But we hadn't even operated, and we had no idea if it would even, be successful. And we were very blessed, and we were successful, and demand, and people wanted to come and visit us. And in our other operations, we have, we start out at 5 days a week, then we go to 7 days a week, and then back down to 5 days a week as a peak shoulder type of season. And we only have the 12 weeks of summer in which to really optimize those times. And we put in some later night rides, like 9 o'clock at night for stargazing. And we started running those, and they were very successful. We ran, I think, 1 or 2, and then Rob said, look, this is really upsetting some neighbours. So we cancelled them all immediately and did not run any tours after at 9 o'clock at night. So, talking with the county and Dennis, we all looked at the permit again, and it clearly says, to be mindful of the noise ordinances between, before 7 a.m. and after 9 p.m. So, that changed our operational plans, and so we just won't, be in that neighborhood, or on the track of that area at 9 o'clock at night. So, so that's one thing that we've done immediately. We're also looking with the county to make more larger improvements to the track. We recently had an engineering company come out to have a look at this one stretch of track between Route 28 and Andrews Lane, because the track is in such poor condition that everything rattles. So where we have, much more superior track in other locations, the rail bikes are relatively quiet because everything is very strong, and there's no triple rattling on ties and old steel. And so we've recently had an engine.
I think the best way that you can explain this is that those bumps you have in roadways, and every time you hit them, your car goes dunk.
Yeah.
Dunk. That's what happens when you meet these rail junctions that essentially are out of alignment or misaligned, and that adds to the noise. And so that we're looking at those to see whether or not we can work on improving that rail so that those kinds of sounds get dissipated fairly rapidly and start to improve the joint connections.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so we've been discussing that with the county that, as a longer term plan, part of our fees will, in the future, be look at track improvement rather than, because, they're intact for us, but that doesn't mean they're in their best quality. So that is in the works, but again, that costs, tens of thousands of dollars, and without a long-term lease for the next 5 years, we need to negotiate that and work out when we can do that, because I don't want to jump and do that now, and then you say, bugger off, I know, but anyway, you better. No, well, yeah. And then we're also, it's a suggestion we came up with a couple of years ago, but we really think it will be quite.
Just the continuing the noise abatement processes, and just to give you an idea of the numbers that we're talking about, to do the track improvements between Route 28 and it's actually beyond Andrews Lane. We're looking at around about $50,000 in investment just to tighten up that rail and to try and it's not going to make it dead silent, but it will hopefully offer some improvement. That's an investment that we're prepared to make, but again, it's contingent on long-term use of that rail. One of the other things that we can do is the railback manufacturer has come up with an aluminum. The regular wheels on our railbacks are solid steel, and because the magic of the railroad is steel wheels on steel track. It's basically zero friction. You get that clickety clack. It's part of the experience of riding on the railroad track. The manufacturer has come up with a more lightweight aluminum wheel with a thick urethane coating on the outer surface. So instead of steel on steel, you have this urethane coating, which does soften the sound. You don't have the clang of steel on steel. We thought that was going to solve all of our problems. Unfortunately, I'll try not to get particularly technical, but the urethane has a very different friction relationship with the steel rail. The steel wheels, once they come into a curve, will simply slide around that curve. The flange on the wheel just slips along the inside of that rail, and the railback will go around that curve. Unfortunately, the urethane wheels, because of the increased friction, they don't slide. They'll actually climb out of the rail because the coating is gripping onto the rail itself. It'll climb out of the rail and derail, and if we're not careful, end up in the esopus. So the pathway solution, which we've already put into place, is to order enough wheels that we can run all of the rear axles with urethane-coated aluminum wheels. That will deaden at least that part of the noise. Unfortunately, we have to stick with steel wheels on the front axle so that we don't have that derailment issue of the bikes as they go around the track.
I have a question. When we had the floods here and the track was destroyed, who repaired the track?
The floods that we experienced that wiped out the horseshoe curve, that repair was done by NISOT as part of the rebuild of 28, because 28 was influenced at that particular point in time. So we used FEMA money and made an agreement with NISOT to have their contractors do it, and part of that had to do with making sure that the repairs got done at the same time that 28 was done. And now it's also some concern being expressed by DEP with respect to how much time we're going to be in the stream and when we're going to be in the stream. So that portion, what they refer to as the horseshoe curve, that major repair was done by NISDOT, working with NISDOT, et cetera, et cetera. And there is a washout further down where Rail Explorers stopped. We actually had some FEMA money with respect to repairing that washout. We took a look at that washout, and we took a look at the money we had versus the amount of dollars it would cost to repair. And point of fact, we made a decision at the county level that we couldn't go through a repair process. So as it currently stands, where rail bikes facilities end right now and they do the turnaround, is where we currently have the necessary funding and in place. And the county is making no plans to extend that track in further to the east, if that's your question.
No, my question is, why doesn't the county repair the track that is not working that well?
So the short answer is that some of the, if you look at the permit, the way that the permit is structured is the capital expenditures associated with that are the responsibility of rail bikes. We have responsibility for some of the major repairs such as washouts, et cetera, under that permit. But these types of responsibilities go back to Rail Explorers.
But they were given the tracks in the conditions that they are now, which are really not the best. So they were given tracks that make noise.
The tracks meet all the requirements for rail operation. So it's unfair, I think, to include the track as not being the best. I mean, it meets the requirements for rail operations. The thing is that can you do something with the track to make them quieter? The answer is yes. Do you need to make something? Do you need to do anything to the track to essentially make sure that rail operations are safe? The answer is no.
This is not rail operations.
But what I'm saying to you is that they are safe right now.
That's not the point.
Well, but if you're asking the point being is that if you need to essentially make improvements that improve the quality of the track for sound purposes, the county believes that responsibility rests with the Rail Explorers, not us.
Somehow I think we've skipped over page 1, which is, what is the problem? People are complaining about the noise at night. How many? Who?
I don't know.
Does anybody know?
Yes.
Now, are they only complaining about at night or is it daytime? Or we're moving off into outer space here.
Let's hear from the
I got a question to say that, sorry.
I'd like to hear from the public a little.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Come on up and address the microphone, please.
We didn't think this was a meeting that we were allowed to speak at, so we both live on Andrew Lane Road. I know the owners know us.
Sir, what are your names behind the walls?
My name is Molly.
Yeah.
My mother was Diane Lando. She's died recently. And this is Sue, who lives next door. So,
You have the Airbnb?
no.
So where are you on Andrews?
We live next to Hasbrook Manor.
I know where you are.
Yeah. She's on the other side. I'm right next door.
Oh, okay.
So rail bikes for us has been extremely detrimental RFPs on our properties for years now, and I'm not sure that I agree with everything that they're saying, or that all the issues are being addressed that matter to us, like the hours of operation. The noise of the bikes, it's from the bikes. I don't think that changing the tracks for $50,000 is gonna make that much of a difference. Those bikes are just loud, period. And when people are shouting when they go by, the young people, most of the young who run the runs, they're not there. They're either way ahead or they're way behind. So they have no idea what's going on that long pass past our properties. But the yelling, I think we can live with. It's the noise of the bikes, which is, if you think that they run 8 to 10 runs a day, they take a long time going by our properties, maybe 10 minutes. They go all the way to the end, and then they turn around back within that same hour. So we're talking 2 times they pass our properties every hour on the hour, more or less, the entire day. I mean, that's what it seems to us.
I work full time, so I am home on the weekends. It is so obnoxious to hear that all day long. I mean, it's unraveling. It's not fair. And I just, we're beside ourselves. Because the time of the year where we can go out and enjoy, we can't. Because that's all we hear.
And so what I don't understand is every year up until this year, when they hit fall, they went back to 5 days a week. This year they didn't. I mean, I had really been looking forward to at least having the fall where they went back to not running on Wednesdays and Thursdays, and they just ran all the way through. I called the planning board, I reached out, I emailed, I talked to different people to find out why, what was the change, but apparently there's nothing written in the permit about actual hours or days of the week. So those 2 days off are everything to us. And so the summer's brutal because it's 7 days a week. And if they do a run at 7 at night, they also have to count that they're coming back at 8 o'clock at night. Or when they start at 8 in the morning, they're going by our house. And I know all the neighbors care. I mean, most of the neighbors feel the same way that we do on the other side. I've been on that property for 40 years. My mother's been a taxpayer for a long time, and I think it's affected the value of our house, and we have safety concerns with things that we've witnessed, with the flag, and
There's
people not paying
children, there's
attention.
actually children that are flaggers there, and they don't pay attention. They do not. I wish I had videotaped almost every time I've tried to stop. I've known enough to stop. But what if somebody's driving that doesn't? There was a child that was actually, she was like a baton twirler. She didn't even know I was there. I sat there and watched her, and I was like,
We've seen the rails not be lifted up. I saw it once.
Yeah,
you
I
saw
had to
it.
drive around
So
it one time.
Cars had to drive around it. So there's just concerns. It just feels like there isn't really enough oversight, and it feels like as homeowners, I don't know. I think it's just been a devastating thing to our neighborhoods, and I know that tourism is important, but if I had any wish at all, it would be that during the summer, we would get at least 1 day off a week. We would maintain the 2 days off a week on the spring and the fall. And we would do whatever we could to make it quieter. We had hopes in the wheels, but
yeah, they really have to do something about the noise pollution, because it is incredibly obnoxious. That's the only word I can use. And I understand people want to make money. This is about bringing, people to the area. I get it, but it's like, as a homeowner, I bought my property 5 years ago. I had no idea this was even going on. So I wouldn't have bought my house, because it's really very disturbing. Because like I said, sometimes I'm up 4:30 in the morning to go to work. Sometimes I'm in bed when they've been pedaling by and screaming and click, 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 click. It's disturbing.
So my question is, at what point does tourism trump homeowners? Like, is it always about the profit to the businesses, or always the profit to the people who work in the stores? Because that's not just all the people that live in this community. A lot of us, I'm a nurse, you have a different job. Our business is not, a lot of people, our business is not based on tourism, and yet I feel like we suffer for the tourist industry. So, we didn't really come prepared to speak, but I just hope you can see how passionate we are about this and how emotionally devastating it has been to our properties and our peace of mind. And there are other neighbors along that line that feel the same way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Kathy Nolan, and I've been involved with the Rail Explorers in a lot of different capacities. Starting before I was in the legislature 4 years ago, looking to have activities in the corridor that would serve the public. And I was very happy with the award of the permit to the Rail Explorers. I was aware, and when I was serving in the legislature 4 years ago, helping to deal with complaints of the neighbors about noise, and I found the Rail Explorers team to be very responsive, both in terms of building the fence and seeking other ways of responding to the noise issues. Now, for the past two years, I've been living on a property that adjoins the corridor. And I have a very different perspective than what you just heard. I'm often working at home, and I have never been bothered by the rail bikes. I can hear them, but it's a very soft noise. It's, for me, I actually, because of the prior complaints, I've actually pulled out my phone and timed the length of time that the rail bikes are passing by. And it's been from 90 seconds to 2.5 minutes. Now, I'm a little bit further east than Andrews Lane, and so I might be past the quiet zone, and maybe the quiet zone making the rail bikes passing for 10 minutes is not as good an idea, because from the house that I'm living in, when I'm outdoors, I'm very close to the corridor, and it's a very soft sound. And it's not, to me, disturbing at all. So perhaps one alternative would be to allow the quiet zone to just apply to noise from the individuals. I also have ridden the bikes many times, and I have always been instructed to be quiet in the quiet zone, and always found people that are riding in the same group to be quiet. And I've always seen the flaggers flagging very appropriately, both when I've been riding the bikes, and I live right beside Andrew Lane, so I'm going across that intersection many times and see the flaggers. So, I think there's a range of perspectives, and the vendor needs to try to accommodate, and has been. I'd like to see that continue to go forward. I think that there are benefits from having the corridor be available for use by the public. And the public has responded to this very, very enthusiastically. The reason there are so many more runs is because the demand to be out on the bikes is so high. And when I've ridden with people who are deaf, who have had a fantastic experience. I've ridden with my sister, who had a knee replacement and couldn't ride a bicycle anymore, and was able to enjoy being out in a way that she couldn't otherwise. So I think that having this attraction has been a huge benefit to Phoenicia and Shandaken and Ulster County. And I don't want it to be a burden on the neighbors, and I don't think that the vendor wants it to be a burden. The idea that the track being in better alignment would decrease the noise makes a lot of sense to me. The clack comes when you hit a gap. Clack, clack, clack. So I think that would improve it, and I think polyurethane on the back wheels could potentially help. And maybe there are other things that could help as well. And I don't know, maybe there is a way to adjust schedules. I would love to be able to take a stargazing ride and have people who come to the area have a stargazing ride. That sounds just very exciting to me. So I hate for anything to be ruled out, but I also, I don't want anybody who lives along the corridor to have an experience that is really burdensome to them. So I just would ask that we stay in conversation about this and try to work it out together.
I think we're always trying to strike that balance in this area, because a lot of our economy is based on tourism, but we all, myself included, we all live here and we have to deal with the ups and the downs of that. It sounds like you guys have tried to address some of the things and ways you know of.
I think it's important to note that we're actually having a conversation, maybe not externally, but internally in terms of listening to the complaints and responding to them. And I also think it's important to note that this may be an incremental response. When we first got the complaints, the conversation with Rail Explorers was, what can we do? Working with the landowners, we came up with the idea of essentially putting the fence in, and that was a significant expense. The fence not required in the permit, but the idea of essentially making sure that we could address some of those concerns went through that process. And then the second piece of that was the establishment of the quiet zone, and the idea that there is a quiet zone, I think, and that from Kathy's testimony and from what we've experienced is that it is enforced.
What do you think of the idea of moving faster, but without talking to the quiet zone? Do you think that?
No, I think that
would be better.
It's random. We've obviously we always check in with Casey and her team and say, look, are you...
Do you think it might be just ripping the Band-Aid off, kind of? Just get them through there quicker without talking?
I'm not sure that they actually slow down, are they?
No, they do. They slow down because the slower you go, you're going over things at a lower volume, at a lower rate, so that the sound is lower, less, high pitched. Alex, what do you?
The volume of the noise of the wheels on the track is directly proportional to the speed that you're going. The faster you're going, the more noise the bikes generate through just the internal vibration, the harder they're hitting onto those joints. The motivation for introducing the signs actually say quiet zone, slow down, or words to that effect. Slow down, quiet zone. Some other signs say residential area, please be respectful. And those signs are placed strategically for both the eastbound and the westbound, so that they're clearly visible to all of the riders. We take great pains to instruct our staff to not make light of this issue, to really focus on the riders and impress upon them the importance of observing these rules. If unfortunately some people are continuing to do the hooting and hollering, then that is certainly unfortunate. We'll look for other ways to further impress upon those people that those to quiet them.
What are your run times in the afternoon to evening?
Typically it's 8:30, 11, 1:30, 4, and then the last one we've been doing is 6:30, and then that comes back in by 9. So that goes past Andrews Lane at about 8.
Okay.
Internally we're trying to figure out what else can we do to at least maybe try and finish up a little bit earlier.
Putting myself in the neighbor's shoes, I could picture, being outside barbecuing in the summer or something,
Yeah.
and kind of feel like someone's in your space a little bit.
Yeah, I mean it's really upsetting to hear how distressed they are and our neighbours are. It's no one wants to hear that. As you know, we put a lot of effort into our business. We have, and even the flagging incidences is shocking to hear because all of our flaggers got trained by us for 2 weeks. we have an operational manual that is with the county that is updated every year, and they are taught, and there's an exam how to flag, and they might be kids, but they're 18, and some of them look darn young. And then they also this year did a New York DOT flagging online course for 4 hours, and every one of our team had to do that. So,
I do, people, people that they're well trained. We discussed this when you guys came before us, because we had safety concerns. People make mistakes, of course, we all do.
Yeah.
I had, the night thing does concern me. This personally, I was driving down 28, and one of the flaggers actually stepped across the white line as I was, going like 55. I had to swerve a little bit, scared me. And that, it's a mistake, it was an honest mistake. He obviously didn't mean to step in front of a car, but if he had stepped, a little bit further.
yeah. We do our best to train them, and sometimes if they're going to be stupid about it, you can't.
No, it was like 9 o'clock at night. I think that's a little.
What time?
It was pretty late. It was 8. It was somewhere between 8 and 9. I don't recall exactly.
I think
It's very dark though.
You say that tracks are causing some of the noise, the gaps in the tracks, is that what it is? Would it be possible to repair just a few sections and not spend all that money and see if there's a significant difference? And what if you repaired all of them and you found that there isn't that much difference?
Well, we're looking at this 2,000-foot section between Route 28 and the other side of Andrews Lane, so almost a mile.
Right, but what I'm suggesting is you just repair less than that.
Have you done like a sample?
No, these are.
And see if there's a difference. What if there's no, why would you spend all that money and then find out that that's not what the cause is?
Oh, that's a great idea. I think that's
Particularly if we start with those folks that have the most difficulty.
Yeah.
That would be I think that's an excellent suggestion.
And, yes, sir.
I'd like to hear if there's anybody else in the audience that would like to speak before we go further.
More neighbors in particular.
Oh, yeah.
Well, one of the things, if you don't mind me speaking, that I heard is exactly like Alan said. Dennis came, gave a good presentation, told us that tracks need necessary repairs. The young ladies on Andrew Lane said that they hear the noise. Kathy said she lives right there and she doesn't hear any noise. So I have to assume that when the bike goes over certain tracks, it's making more noise that one neighbor can hear and one neighbor right across can't hear. So if we could straighten out the tracks in those areas, meaning when I say straighten them out, I don't mean straight this way, straight repair, that might take some of the noise away and help everybody. But there's got to be a solution here. I mean, you're an asset to the community. We like you. We also love our neighbors. And yes, ma'am, I saw you put your hand up.
I just think questions about scheduling are also really crucial to us. Like, when do we get a day of peace on our properties? So when they started this fall, they went to 7 days a week. They didn't drop down to 5 like they have done every year since they started. But apparently they didn't need to get permission, and we were not informed. So how do we as neighbors ever get informed when there are changes? Or if it's not written in their contract, then they can really just run as many runs as they want. And I do believe they run more runs than what she stated from our experience. But how could we get back to 5 days a week in the last month or two of fall, or maybe 1 day off a week during the summer? If they can't control the noise, then at least if we could have just a day to be on our properties without the constant going back and forth. I know that means giving up a little profit, so that's a hard one, but.
It's not just profit, we've reinvested in this community, and we now have 6 full-time employees here. And, it's a highly intensely It's very seasonal, but also we had to we lost 20 tours this year because of the weather. And you have to sort of plan for the worst. But I think that, that it's such a shame because Andrews Lane is the only tiny part of the tour that has got any neighbours. Our neighbours on Lower High Street, while they may have had concerns before we opened, are really happy with us. The quality of all the landscaping, even the noise and the parking and the road issues. They've been quietly, they've been really surprised that we've been able to mitigate a lot of that through one-way entrances. We will try and come up with some ideas. I really think that the 7 days a week in the summer is essential. I think we can look at vegetation. We wanted to talk to the county. We've mentioned to the county that one of our dreams is to put up a 2,000-foot vegetation tunnel. And we mentioned that, I think, to you, Holly, a couple of years ago, but you wanted the fence. But where Molly's property is, it's up on the hill, it's above the track. So it's got a really direct sight line. So sound goes in a straight, you know what I mean? So it's also just not, there's not very much you can do because unless you want to build a fence this high. So we're thinking of a round greenhouse tunnel for 2,000 feet and grow ivy and wildflowers up there, and it would add a natural vegetation buffer, plus the site would be eliminated. But again, we want to talk to the county about this because just for the steel infrastructure is $100,000. And we're happy to do that, but we want to make sure that there's a lease behind that because these trees and shrubs are going to take a while to grow. But it's going to be beautiful. It would be beautiful. And maybe there's things that we can look at to do the last runs of the day just to Mount Tremper instead of going all the way across Andrews Lane. Do you know what I mean? Like just, like a little mini tour.
I'm Sarah. I'm the secretary of the
Oh, yeah,
planning
hi,
board.
Sarah.
Yeah, and I feel like I don't actually even live in Shandaken, but I feel like I field a lot of this conversation, just being their secretary, but getting the calls in our office. And truly, the sense I understand it to be is the hours of operation and that nighttime stuff. And not just Andrews Lane. I hear, do you give out lights? That they put headlights on?
No, the lights are on the bikes.
Yeah, I've heard it to be.
They can't take them off, they're on the bikes.
Okay,
This
which is probably a great safety concern, It just, I've heard drivers constantly talking about that oncoming while they're going and just the distraction it causes. Or, I've only talked to Molly once actually. It's just in general, the nighttime and the noise ordinance in residential zone, which is a lot of the section, is 7 p.m. It's not 9 p.m. That's only for commercial in our town ordinance.
Right, but we're with the county.
I understand, but in our area, like you just mentioned, would be perfect, stopping at Mount Tremper, because then you're going into such a severe residential zone, and their time is 7 p.m., and they should have that, quite possibly. When this letter went out to John Milgram actually first, he called and he even said, I think that there could be a great conversation where a permitted use of where we know when you're doing 7 days a week to all hours, dusk to dawn and into the night. And maybe there are these special holiday weekends where you do the 9 p.m. right. But everyone knows.
I see what you're saying.
And
That's a great idea. That's a really good
and that was his suggestion for us to get together and talk, because I only hear in my office about the nighttime and then 7 days a week. Because everyone in this community during your public hearing heard you say 5 days a week, the last ride's at 4 p.m. And so it's a little
right, last
confusing.
ride at 4 p.m., but it means you come
It's
back at
confusing
6
for residents that live in a neighborhood, watch a public hearing, and think they're being told this is what it is, which is great, but then for it to change, like Molly just mentioned, and not have any
catch up on.
Yeah, like we announced for a public hearing, just any, hey, this is where we're changing to.
Right.
I think it would help
Okay.
everybody feel part of it instead of feeling, well, I'm not a tourist, so I don't count, and tourist is our drive.
Right.
Because they do count, they support all of us.
Well, that's, well,
Okay. Hi, I'm Bill Weissman, Building Inspector and Code Enforcement Officer. I thought that the idea for vegetation was a great idea, but rather than a tunnel, it's easier to grow a lot of thick shrubbery, which would definitely be a sound barrier, and that can happen fast. There's a lot of plants that grow real fast. But before I was even going to say that, have you considered, and I don't know enough about it, but look into it, sound or noise canceling technology, which has come a long way.
originally we did a couple of years ago, but a lot of the mitigation things for trains, you have to be going at a certain speed, like 50 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour. We actually looked at these barriers that you attach, well, with these sort of rubber, almost like secondary ties that they fit inside the steel, but again,
That's mechanical, I'm talking about
They make noise canceling
mechanical,
technology.
you know,
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
opposing noise produced by computerized sound,
They're actually
something
making
that
sound
receives
waves.
sound, it knows what to put out.
Oh.
So it's an output
Never
sound
seen,
that
never
actually
seen it
cancels
used in
the
highway
sound.
or rail situations, but I mean, we can look, it's generally used in other situations, so we can.
I think if we can, just try and we'll move ahead and try and get some sort of sampling idea. We'll work on some ideas with our schedules. We'll talk to the county about, something that maybe a couple of year planning out, to plan out the budget so that we can.
I think the half lap in the evening solves a whole bunch of
Yeah, I think,
issues. Because then you're not dealing with the 28 crossing.
Right, right.
At stage you have.
I mean, evening is a tricky word because at 9 o'clock sometimes it's still bright outside. But I mean, yeah, but you're just saying it is.
Oh, and then dinner time,
Yeah.
when you want to be home with you get home from your day at work and you
Yeah.
want to be able to relax.
I get it.
So-
We really get it.
So your contract ends next year?
December 22.
Right. And what do they have to do to extend their contract?
It's a permit issued by the county, so the county would enter into permit discussions with rail explorers. And we would do that probably, obviously.
Do they have a right of first refusal, or are you going to RFP?
We haven't made a decision with respect to RFPs yet, but it would seem, given the success, it would seem sort of counterproductive.
Not in the county's interest.
Yeah, to issue another RFP, but that discussion is ongoing right now at the county level, as to whether or not we would or wouldn't. And just be aware of the fact, the reason it's limited to 5 years is the county has some restrictions in terms of its ability to enter into contracts under county law, that you can't go longer than 5 years.
Could they apply for that contract now?
They could, but the
They
conditions,
would have, they would feel more comfortable investing money.
the
if they
conditions
knew
would still
that they-
apply to the 22nd, or to the 22, that's correct.
Say that again, I don't
The
understand.
conditions would still apply in the permit till December of 22, unless they're willing to cancel the contract, and we haven't had those discussions.
I have a few thoughts, if I may. Yeah. So, I'm very glad we're having this. This is a reactive conversation. I would have preferred a proactive conversation. And I would suggest that beginning of every season, you should invite rail explorers to tell us, here's our plan for this season coming up, the shoulder, the summer, and the shoulder, so that we know what you're thinking in terms of maybe shortening tourist amount Tremper, maybe changing some of the starting hours. I completely get why you have to run as much as you can in the summer, because the weather actually has gotten wetter, I think, in the last few years. So,
Oh, man, your people are troopers, they're out there.
so if I may, I would really like to know each year, season, the public can hear, here's what we're planning to do, this is the feedback we got from our customers, this is what we want you to expect for the year. I've heard things about the green tunnel. For my base, let me finish. Yeah, I do know that the one thing that stops noise is mass, weight, but you don't want to see stuff. But you put out a lot of ideas of things you can do, and I think that's great. The thing that concerned me was that we heard one thing at the planning board a few years ago, and nobody ever came back to say, hey, our business is really doing well. we want to change the way we're doing some things based on what we had promised you. Because I feel like we heard a promise that didn't quite happen. I just want to see proactive conversations as we go forward, as opposed to this reactive one tonight. I want to see you guys, I want everybody to be happy if that's at all possible. And noise, unfortunately, is just so subjective. I like Bel Canto opera. Some people think it's noise.
So why don't we do this? One is that we have been having proactive conversations when we started operating with respect to some of the neighbors and the neighbors' complaints. And I think the board needs to understand that. We haven't basically ignored the neighbors and said we're not going to change anything. We've actually, looked at solutions and actually spent some money on solutions with respect to that. But why don't we say this, that before we start next season, we'll come back and have a conversation with the board with respect to where we are in terms of some of the things that we talked about tonight, as well as conversations with you in terms about what our plans are, what Rail Explorer's plans are relative to that, and give you an update in terms of where we are as it relates to the permit. Does that work for people?
I think that's lovely.
I think that's good.
Okay. So sometime, I'm guessing you start in end of April, early May?
May, yeah.
Okay, so sometime end of April. So if somebody can book us for that, the meeting before that, we'll have that conversation. Okay.
And our meetings are always open to the public.
Yeah, second Wednesday of the month, we'll talk about what that would work. Cool, be great.
Okay. And to those folks that are neighbors, please don't stop having conversations with us. I think we don't have to wait till May. We want to certainly continue to hear from you and hear any concerns. In particular, if there's any sort of reaction to what we've discussed tonight, letting us know what those responses, what your thoughts are of that, I think would be helpful as well.
Who do we let know?
Why don't you do this? Why don't you make sure, I'm pretty sure that you have Mary Joyce's email address, and I know you know mine.
I don't feel that comfortable because.
Well, that's fine. Then certainly send it to me.
Okay.
And if you do me a favor, email is the bane of my existence since the pandemic hit and continues. There's hundreds a day that come in. If you don't get a response from me that I've received it and looked at it, then give me a call. Okay?
Thank you.
Can I just mention one thing that I think is just being overlooked? And it's just that we've seen an incredible amount of success in the bicycle rail trail. The whole community, everyone can use it. People come from all around to use it. The rail bikes, I can't afford to do it. Nobody I know can afford to do it. And you can't even walk on the tracks. So I would really think twice about renewing this and maybe looking towards something that all the community can use.
So we appreciate that, and it's one of the reasons that we divided the trail up into, or excuse me, the corridor up into areas that should be used for trail, areas that should be used for rail, and areas that could be used for both. The legislature made a decision that this area was dedicated to railroad use, but they did also make a decision that as you move west of Phoenicia, that area was designated for trail use. And I will tell you that the planning department, working with the legislature, has put in a request to essentially convert from railroad use to trail use a section of the tracks between High Mount all the way down into Big Indian, with the first phase being from High Mount to the Bel Air Day use area. We have applications in for federal grants and applications in for state grants, and we have a legislative resolution that was passed that would provide the matching funds if we do get those grants, and those matching funds are in the neighborhood of about $950,000. We went through a feasibility study. It's online. It's under the Ulster County Transportation Council's website. It's online. If anybody has difficulty accessing it, let me know. I'll be happy to show you the link. Actually, I can send the planning board the link for that. But we're enthusiastic. We think we would really like to start that effort, and I can also tell you that DEC is enthusiastic, and ORTA, who is also enthusiastic. So we have some movement afoot to essentially increase the trail opportunities in the Shandaken area.
Well, that's not.
I assume you're still taking public comment.
Yeah,
That's
sorry.
okay. So, my name is Ward Todd with the Ulster County Regional Chamber of Commerce, and Lisa Burgess here with Ulster County Tourism. I just wanted to give you 30 seconds from a business perspective. We have seen the town of Shandaken in the last
handful of years, those of you who've lived here for a while have seen it, really become a tourist destination. And the Rail Explorers is one significant part of that. And what we haven't had a chance to hear from are all the businesses that have now relied on the customers that have come to Rail Explorers. And so if you talk to anybody at Maeve's or at Danielle's or Rio's or the Emerson, they will tell you it's had an impact. And what that means is they've been able to pay more sales tax, for the Emerson more bed tax, they've been able to afford their property tax, they've hired our local residents, they've been able to pay them a living wage, and they continue to expand. And we've had this tremendous growth. I would hate to see that type of growth and that business-friendly atmosphere that's been here in Shandaken now in some way diminished. I do think they're doing a great job. I appreciate the fact that they're listening to the concerns and the complaints that have been issued. But again, from a business perspective, they have absolutely hit a home run. Shandaken has become a spot now for people to vacation, and I think it's great. So congratulations to you guys. Thank you.
Okay, I think that was productive. Thank you, everyone, for your...
Lisa, I think one.
I just want to say one thing. Since word of knowledge that the Director of Tourism is here, I'm here to say that I understand the tension, especially in light of the pandemic, between residents and our tourism economy. I understand it. This community's been impacted. A lot of other communities I happen to live in New Paltz is deeply impacted by it. I do want to say that, however, to the town, that Rail Explorers has become a destination that is not just local, regional, and statewide. As the Hudson Valley Tourism entity, we took information about Rail Explorers to the largest event where we sell internationally to international buyers, and the response from people there was amazing. They had never seen anything quite like it, and they loved that little slice of Americana. And while it's true that sometimes activities are expensive, the accessibility of this, and I think that you heard that from Kathy, is also very important to the tourism department. This is one of the few outdoor activities that we have that's fully accessible and allows people with disabilities to fully enjoy our beautiful outdoor scenery. And then just to echo the importance of the trail system, the tourism department couldn't be happier or more delighted with the idea to expand a rail trail beginning at High Mount. We see connectivity to that to be even more important to our communities. And we're focused on making sure that everybody benefits, not just an operator, not just certain businesses, but that we all wind up benefiting from it. So I just thought I'd be remiss by not getting up and acknowledging I was here. Thank you.
I'd like to say something. I want to thank all you concerned citizens. I want to thank the Rail Explorers. A meeting like this and a discussion like this is so important to the town. This, what's taking place right now, is what builds a strong community. Thank you very much to all of you.
Well, I would like to extend our thanks to the board for letting us start this conversation, and hopefully we can continue it on a regular basis to make sure that everyone is informed.
Yep. And Rail Explorers, thank you too, and we will, try and keep improving and doing better for the community. And we'll keep you in touch as well. And outdoors are always open too. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for letting me borrow the chair.
Good point.
Hi, Chair. Don't say
Sorry, just one of them. Hello, Sam. How are you doing?
No, not yet.
Because I she does been touching like I put what I
I'll do my best.
I love it. 5-year-old boy. I imagine. And it brings out the 5-year-old boy. Good to see you.
outside so we can continue our meeting. All right. Next item on the agenda is the Miller Road, oh, sorry, the lot.
Gavel it.
Yeah.
Behind you. Under communications, Jana Robinson was here at a workshop a month or so ago, and she was proposing to do a guest cottage, but she wasn't going to do setbacks. She owned all the properties around her. She's merged that now with the county. She submitted mapping to them, and that will take place from January, March when they do all those merges. Just so you know, so she is now only 13.20-1-11, and she's meeting the setbacks for that guest cottage. That was the rest. That's the last thing in communications. So, thank you. We just have to have it in the minutes.
All right, next, old business, the Miller Road subdivision that we just had the public hearing regarding. Are there any further comments, questions, thoughts on it?
I'm satisfied.
Then I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the subdivision. The documentation that was submitted to us is all good. We have health department approvals, we have a road maintenance agreement, we have all the articles that are required for our subdivision, and I think they've done a nice job.
Second.
I'm going to give it to Vivian. Cliff Rebufo,
Yes.
Art Christie,
Yes.
Joanne Cow, John Horn, Alan Shiner, Sam Spada,
Yes.
Vivian Welton.
Yes.
Okay, your subdivision is approved. I'll send you a copy.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you guys very much.
Yeah.
You don't have to stay.
You see
now you're
They might be best friends.
So next is the Shandaken, so I'm going to move.
Okay.
And I believe you have a timeline to share with us.
Yeah. So we're on to Shandaken Inn. As you all know, Cliff is recusing himself. So just where we're at, just to recap for you all, is you submitted for lead agency to the DEC, the DEP, and the Board of Health, and they're still in their 30-day process to return. The DEC, who the Speedies permit is with, has a response. I can read it to you. So I'll pull it up to read it to you. They have a response, and they're the ones, like with the septic that's over 1,000 gallons, they're the ones that need to amend the permit. So, sorry, I just got it earlier. Here you go. And New York State DEC permits recently received a seeker lead agency coordination letter from the town of Shandaken regarding an expansion of use and lot consolidation at the Shandaken Inn. We don't have any comments at this time on the substance of the application, as we probably would not be able to get them to you in a timely manner. However, when you're ready to submit the actual application for this facility for a Speedies mod, please ensure to send sufficient copies to our use. We prefer digital copies. So you have options for next month's meeting. You can set a public hearing now, but you can't have the public hearing until you do your determination. Once you hear back from DEP and the Board of Health. And on December 16th is the not 30 days. Is that what you circulated for? So you could set a public hearing for January, but you'd have to open your monthly meeting and make your determination, the secret determination. Then you'd have to go into your public hearing, and then you'd have to go back to your monthly meeting. You could review county and whatever. Or we can just wait these 30 days out, and then you can meet in January. You'll have the county's response. You can make your secret determination and have discussions, and you can set your public hearing for February.
I think if you wait, that will be better. so we have the information.
I would like to, I think it looks better, it looks as if we give it due consideration. We shouldn't appear to be rushing things.
Yeah.
I like all the information before I pass judgment, for sure.
Right. So at this point, we'll just sit by, and in January, we'll have information from the other agencies, and then also you'll have a county response. We had an informal one, but why not wait for the formal one? Okay. So nothing on Shandaken then, that was it. So Cliff can come back.
That's it, your seat didn't even get cold.
Now, I'm looking at the calendar, it says our meeting is December 15th. What are we doing here?
That's the ZBA's calendar, I think. You might be over a column.
I think this is our only meeting, or are we going to meet the Wednesday before Christmas? Was the last one?
That was Thanksgiving, I think.
Thanksgiving we canceled.
Right.
But
We
December
canceled
is
this December also.
Well, actually, December would be between Christmas and New Year's,
It's like
wouldn't
the
it?
28th, the workshop. And you have no applicants so far. Nobody's reached out to comment.
So we should, I'd be in favor of
We have nobody
Yeah.
coming.
Okay. All right. So in your other business category, sorry.
Where are we here? Other business, Festival of the Voice.
Should I go?
Yes, please.
You know, I should have brought a song counselor. I should have brought a bel canto song. I didn't know, and this is actually so much more intimidating than an audition. So I'm having a heart attack here. I brought you a little bit of documentation, a few pictures, because I know you guys, you all know where the West End
We
Church
appear
is.
on this stage.
So, you know how I slowly and surely I crawl towards the stage and the lights, yes. And,
Oh, I don't know if I need this. You should have taken that copy. Okay, thank you.
This is the first time we're getting on.
I think we should.
you know, I suck at
back
making
down.
pictures.
There's no application.
No.
Here you go.
Question.
So, I'm here because you wanted to see me. So, and I don't know if everybody knows what we do and how we started. So I know it's late and everybody wants to go home. So I won't go into a big explanation of what we do and how we make art relevant to the community. But I'm here to answer your questions. I think you all know we purchased. This is our first purchase. We have the West End Church and the Parsonage on 2224 Main Street. Can you hear me?
Maria, can you
You
talk?
can take the mic.
Maria,
Yes.
can you talk into the mic?
Yeah, you
Yes,
can. And it comes out.
You know how ego bruised I am that I have to talk in front of a mic. But you're right. It's like, anyhow, so I'm here to answer the questions that you may have for our usage. We've been using the church for 12 years, but not as host, but as guest, of course. So the list of the things that we would like to continue to do in that church is on the paper, and it's the things that we've been doing in that church for 12 years now. We're relearning. There's a lot of things that we're gonna have to learn to do, improve. This is the first time that we own something, so we're waiting for guidance from Bill. And that's it, for my part.
So the difference is, it was operating as a church previously,
Yeah.
and now it's not anymore.
I know.
So that's a change of use, so we'll need to go through the site plan process with you.
Okay.
The applications are up in the zoning office upstairs. But what that is I'm gonna walk you through what's required. But we just need, because it affects things like parking,
Yes.
occupancy, exits, all stuff like that. So like, is there a retail component? Is it just, I know you're doing concerts there.
Yes, and classes, and
Would this be
we
considered a music hall?
I couldn't find
I mean,
specifically, like cultural.
In Bill and I's books, it's assembly. It's
Okay.
the form of assembly for us and our state coding.
Oh,
But
it's going from an A3 religious assembly with an accessory classroom space downstairs. Now it's going to an A1 concert venue with a business, separate business downstairs. So that's how it has to be. I mean, yes, according to state code, that's what it'll be.
Is that an approved use in this district?
I'm sorry?
Is that use approved? Does it need special permit? Is it regular?
No,
permit?
Well, it doesn't need special permit, but
It's a change in use.
It's a change in use, which means that it's gonna be a whole new.
And it's simpler because
Part
we
of
don't need
it.
special
Right,
permit.
it's a more of a, it's just a site plan review for the planning board, and then when we, if that's approved, then we have, where, you know, they haven't needed any building permits as of yet, what they were doing, but when they do, we know what we're classifying it as, and then when we do fire and safety inspection, which Bill did, then we'd have something to go off of and help guide them. And also, this was approached in June. She was asking how he was working with her. I have emails, the word variance. You know, you guys had some conversations.
We wanted to be proactive. We knew when we purchased, we knew about the possible, you know, variance question, and we're learning in the process, of course. And but this is what we contacted the office.
So there's a gap in that month, and then now Bill and I are here, and I just said, I think you need to see the planning board. I think you have a change of use. However, let's get this fire and safety inspection, because what they do already have scheduled is concerts. And I just from a perspective of building enforcement, I just want to make sure no one ever is injured, or we have to talk to Teddy Byron at 2 in the morning and there's fires, and, you know, I just want to make sure that they're okay that way. But for you all, it should be a change of use. She has a lot of travel in this winter. So this was how we jammed it in.
I know your schedule is tight. Connie.
Yeah, so it was like, let's just please come, let's talk.
Yes.
I'm grateful you could see me.
So when will we see the application?
Well,
for
that's
change of use?
when we can do it as soon as possible, and then you can review it in January at your
So we
next
can see
one.
it at the January meeting.
Yeah.
And it's a wood frame structure.
And you can have a representation.
Yes, absolutely. I have
Yeah.
board members
We
here,
can match, yeah.
Jeffy, Record, yes, absolutely. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, we did do a fire and safety inspection if you want to hear about it.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
We also have to know what this is.
Yeah.
What we're gonna classify, is it a cabaret, is it a music hall, is it, you know?
You know, you know, Al, we, with the Festival of the Voice, and also our trade is mostly classical music. But we have broadened to jazz. We don't do rock and roll heavy. This is not our, you know, as of the concern that maybe our neighbors would have for those also. This is never going to be, I mean, this is not a specialty.
What we have to do, Maria, is decide where what you're doing
Fits
into the
understood.
ordinance.
I
And
would
then there's
say,
different categories that will take place.
would performing arts in general be a good category? Because that would involve poetry, that would involve theater, that would not limit just at music. You know what I mean?
What's the theater?
But like Bill
Theater.
said, this is a wood frame structure, and it has to go through all the fire details, the fire eventually egress.
Understood.
And then in social media, it seems there's something different than concerts and assembly in the basement. Or the basement
Yes.
is not underground, it's that,
Yes.
it's that great. Like it's, you know, the church, you have to walk up the steps, so the church is almost more like a second level, just to be clear. But on the downstairs,
Yeah. So the downstairs, we have a tenant. That's very helpful for us. And Marilyn St. John wants to create a community center there.
Marilyn St. John?
Yeah.
What is the
You
tenant?
know, the karate studio?
Yeah.
Okay.
She does yoga class and tai chi, and I don't believe she can do martial arts because it's not high enough. But she fell in love with the space, and she's also, you know, with COVID and everything, she's defining her business. And this is a question in our lease. Everything that comes and requires a permit, this is her responsibility to come to you and tell and obtain what she needs to obtain.
Well,
And
for the
then,
building overall, who's going to be responsible for bringing in the architect to do plans because they're going to need it?
so exactly, when she defined if there's anything else than classes that she would like to do downstairs, I think she would have to get it formed and seek guidance with you guys, and then we will see.
So
we will
this is
see how the
multi-use?
works are. But right now, she's doing classes, and she's doing community.
But it should be done in conjunction with the upstairs as well.
So absolutely. I mean, I don't know. I'm learning.
Okay.
So I mean, So maybe you tell us what you need
Is
to
it,
see.
is the farmer's market downstairs?
So recently she harbors it. Yes, she has welcomed it. I think it's the second or third time they're welcoming. My understanding of what she's doing, and this is also a new discovery, is that there was no place for people to pick up the delivery, and she has offered the downstairs place as a delivery pickup thing.
When the farmer's market opened up outside, it was approached through the building office, and it was the permitting process, whether it needed to be or not, took place there. And so now that it's still happening, but not through these offices or the planning board, is the where it just raised alarm as this is a there's things going on, but they're not, no change of use has been issued, right?
Well, it sounds like it's a multi-use. If they're upstairs and you have a farmer's market downstairs.
Yeah. Or other things downstairs, it sounds like a different business.
Yeah, she wants to do a community center.
So when you, in January with your application, we don't get in the middle of your agreements with each other. Someone needs to represent this church and its change of use overall.
Can I ask a few couple questions here?
Yeah, please.
Is this currently being used in this fashion? The basement area and the upstairs, I mean, they moved in.
Yes.
They are doing it currently, yeah.
Okay. Is there a fire problem from the most recent report, inspection?
Is it unsafe
So
again?
tell us, yes.
What was the result of the most recent fire inspection?
It's very failed.
Is anybody in this room comfortable with this going forward? You know, a use that has not been approved in a fire situation that's not safe? I'm totally uncomfortable with this.
I am, but I'm certified and I have to watch these horror videos of buildings burning with no egress.
Well, this can all get sorted out.
Of course.
That's not the issue here.
No, we're here to
But
analyze
occupying
it.
something, I don't know, if I was your insurer, I'd say you're illegally occupying this, you're not covered.
So I understand, and I pushed to have Bill coming last week because as soon as you go back, I mean, from our perspective, of course, you understand that in June and then in August we were kind of moved-ish.
No, you weren't. I read the emails. He said you needed a variance. Well, you called it a variance. This is what he said you needed to do. And the work you were doing didn't require the building permit. You're allowed to paint inside, but he hadn't performed a fire and safety inspection. Then he left in September.
That was unclear.
And then
I would suggest this, you know, that the case is the past, there's some bumps in the road both sides.
Yes.
I think this needs, just for the record, this is an urgent matter that needs to be addressed immediately.
Okay, so we have not received yet the report, and I don't know what we have to do yet. So, Bill, are you going to send it?
If you need a report,
I think they decide what to
here's
do.
the thing.
How
There's
does
a
that-
list, there's a long list of things that need to be done, that needs to be addressed by someone who's gonna stamp a set of plans, an architect who's well-versed in fire code, and, because you're gonna have to open walls, you're gonna have to change staircases, you're gonna have to change your doors. There's a long list of stuff that's gonna cost. I'm sorry, I think your organization is wonderful, but this space as it is unsafe.
You see, we have a vision for the place, so this is part of the vision. It's we have to get approved. So I'm grateful.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
grateful.
wonderful, yeah.
I don't see any. I see you as helping us to become a better organization and guarantee the safety. So I'm with you. Now the cost and everything. Of course, we are an not-for-profit, so each time there's an expense, we have to raise the fund. So we need to know exactly what we're fighting, how we motivated our donors to.
I can give you a list if you need to go out and get estimates for, but as far as the back egress, an architect's gonna have to, it is complicated. That back egress, which downstairs you need two means of egress.
Okay.
So you got the back door, which is unqualified as one, plus you're gonna need another. Upstairs, you gotta change your doors around to open out, have a panic releases, there's a whole list of things. You can't go up on a stage to go down into a stairwell to get out. It's.
Okay.
So
No, I believe you.
Step
You're
one.
more panic than I do, but I believe you.
Step one for you is going to be to go up to the building department and get a site plan review application.
Thank you.
They'll help categorize you.
This is something I can do.
I looked through, we have a copy in the book too, and I looked through it today, and, it's going to be vague in terms of, it's not, the land use is already, the interior is what you'll be looking at. The exterior stuff is we'll be looking at parking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, Maria, I think what you have to do first is decide what you want to do there. Upstairs, downstairs, I mean,
Could we do both?
each thing that you just mentioned
Yeah,
requires different things,
understood.
okay? I
This is
mean-
a conversation I have with my board.
Yeah,
I don't know yet, you know.
I just, I have Mike,
Yeah.
on the board. And just hearing this, kind of the first time I'm hearing
Sure.
these issues. But one, I guess the assumption, I think, from Maria's standpoint and our standpoint was that it was always a place of assembly, and had been that way for a long time. So I guess the change in use makes total sense to what I'm hearing. But in its current form, what can we do in there?
Well,
is
you have
one
to
question.
decide that.
Right.
You know, when you say it's a place of assembly, we all agree on that.
Sure, right.
But there's so many different categories under a place of assembly. And each one has different rules. Bill's got the building code going, but there's also, there's parking, there's lighting, there's signage. You know from what you've been through.
Absolutely.
And when you come to us, you have to say, this is what I want to do. And then we'll look in the ordinance, and we look under what it says is permitted use.
Right.
Or permitted use with a special permit, or not permitted at all.
So the list that you have in front of you describes what we want to do. What we want to do is put concerts. We want to have workshops. We want to do masterclass. We want to continue our educational program. The pictures you see are pictures that have been taken over the 12 past years. This is not a new usage for us, at least. So this is why this assumption of continuity was very much there. We want to continue simply doing what we're doing. And what we were doing is we have a choir, which is like, and by the way, this choir has been for free, so there's no gain in, we've done this choir, I've dedicated for 15 years, 2 hours of my life every week. Well, you're in my choir. But, it's, so we want to continue to have the meetings of the choir, which varies from 10 to 30 people when they come. This right now is scheduled on Friday evening, and I'm going to be gone for a month and a half, so when I'm gone, there's no choir, unfortunately, so it's not a thing. But this has been what we've done here. We started actually 15 years ago the choir in the basement of that church. So we have a long, ongoing history of, community demonstration in that church. We did gospel concerts, we had Superstar coming, we had new plays that have been tried in that church. So this is really what we want to do, if I have to be precise and answer that question. Can we do that now?
So I guess to sum it up, we're going to get an architect to explain what we need. We'll draw it up and present it. Right? That's
A
basically what it
significant
says.
thing, a significant change would be renting out the lower level.
Mm-hmm.
That would be significant, because that's in a different part of our code book.
Right.
So a use for the building for a single use
Right.
is in one part of the code book, and multi-use buildings are in another part of the code book.
Understood.
So therefore that, and the owner of the building has to apply for.
Right, not the
that-
tenant.
Not a tenant. It goes to the building. So that's very significant in how we have to measure what you're doing.
Okay.
A lot of this is gonna boil down to the fire safety stuff.
And I would be very concerned as if I owned a building and I knew that it was not safe, because everybody here and the public knows that it's not safe to continue renting out the bottom of the building when you know that it's not according to fire code.
Mm-hmm. Sure, and I think we're just learning these issues now. So I think Maria
Yeah, that's
mentioned
the
to me
reason
that
I pushed for that
she had
meeting.
walked through with Howie a few times and got some tacit approval. And then, yes, I don't know how long ago you guys met with the building
Last
inspector.
Wednesday.
Yeah, so we're
Yeah, we want
proactively
to do the right
dealing
thing,
with
that's
it
no
now.
doubt. So
And
now,
I would like to say, I am also on the board, and I would call it a cultural center, which envelops, workshops, programs, performances, And downstairs even, it could be a part of a cultural center, that the renter is doing things to culturally enhance the whole area. As far as the farmer's market, I don't know. But in regard to what she wants to use it for, originally, you know, it was classes and different items that really support our purpose.
So when you do this, it has to be in writing so that we don't run into problems like we just had with the rail. You said and what people say when they come to the board and what they actually do is different. So we need what you're going to do in writing.
Okay.
And
Do you
then
have a
we have to
specific,
evaluate. And
There's
it's
the
not,
application.
we're not judging what
Yeah,
you're
there's
doing.
an application.
It's just what's in the plans.
Yeah, where Lee Park, where's your life, where's your
We
sign?
have to make sure that you do what our code says.
This is very doable.
Yeah,
You have to go through the steps.
I feel good, and again, I'm grateful for this. It's good stuff that is
Yes.
going to make us look better. So we all very grateful and safer from our audience. Which
It's
is
probably the best adaptive reuse opportunity there is to put a cultural institution in there. Just do the paperwork.
We believe that too. So now I have a few questions because before we go personal. The office next door, because there's two buildings, right? So your main concern is on the assembly hall, the safety reason, but the office is okay.
Two separate buildings, two separate permits.
Yeah. You're,
Okay, good to know.
What was the other building? Was it a parsonage?
yeah.
It was residential?
Well, I think it's still commercial right there.
That's
The
one
street's
lot.
funny.
What was it used before?
The
Parcel.
part of there, you know.
There may be a change of-
Residential zone, and the
Maria,
whole process needs to begin.
I think what will really help you is the advice that Bill gave you.
Yes.
It was excellent.
The architect.
Go to an architect, tell him what you want to do. He'll look in our code book, and he'll make the requirements for you to fit into the specific areas.
Right.
Okay.
That sounds great. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's Saturday. Because it's Saturday, after tomorrow, we have a concert. So, what do we do?
Well, they're not enforcement,
We can't give you permission to do that, if that's what you're.
and they're not in the enforcement department. We are, sadly, not Bill and I.
So what do we do Saturday? Should we hire a fire marshal for the event as a, should we do?
My hands are tied.
I understand. We have a basic solution.
My hands are tied because if you ask me, you can operate.
Ah.
Until you have a site plan approval from the planning board, and the fire and safety inspection is a fail at this point because the forms of egress aren't safe yet. They will be, I know they will,
No.
but we're just not there yet. And that's when I started to see all this on social media. I panicked for you because I know that you would never, I didn't know your reputation. You're great for the community, but I know you wouldn't want to be in a situation where something could happen and you'll get out.
Absolutely.
And the way that church was designed for that time period, it wouldn't be good for today's time period.
So, could we understood about the safety, is there a way to kind of special permit an emergency for Saturday?
I think it's, I'm going to, Bill, we're just meeting for the first time, I'm Sam Spada. There are engineering solutions for safety where it's built. There's also administrative controls, I don't know, things like fire watches, etc. You might want to give some thought to that and see if there's something administratively they can do
To have the conscience.
to make it a safe before they get the engineer solution in place. I
Where
don't know if there is.
Bill and I have,
People can speak.
Bill and I also have to talk to the town board, who we would have to talk to the town supervisor too. Because we don't,
I appreciate what you just said, as it's going to take time to. Okay, well, I don't know. As we are, taking the time to go in and find the money and all that stuff, is there a way to, how do we operate without, is there I'm not sure I'm making sense, but is there a way, is there other solutions such as professionals, firemen that comes and are with us?
That's what I was asking you to
Yes.
explore with you, yes.
Is this something you and I
Right,
discuss?
whether it's going to be expensive, you know, that's one thing, but, yeah.
Um,
Where are they gonna go, what township would come over that has the proper fire marshal, who knows what they're doing in that situation?
We, you know, over the 12 years, we have developed so many
You could talk to our
relationships
fire marshal,
with,
start.
we have some incredible human beings that are professional and
Oh.
will come for us and support the organization for free. So
I
we are not
would need to
talking-
go to the state first to speak to them about this being legal to do, to begin with this type of egress. So I would have to first speak to the state to see what the remedy is for that.
So basically, until we get all the permits, we cannot operate.
I think it sounds, I think what we're hearing here is that there's no concerts in that building until we square this away. If the concert could be someplace else that's approved, but not in that
Yes,
building.
we will discuss those things.
Right.
I think. Okay.
Tickets are sold already.
Oh, yeah, I mean, you know, they've been rehearsing in New York. I mean, my plea here was that considering how much the art has suffered during COVID, you know, when there's an artist that has an opportunity to make a little bit of money, right now it's priceless. What we're doing is more like, we are not making money at all. We have given the church to organizations that have hired those people. We are not perceiving any process in the operation. It's just a pure act of continuing the mission of the arts here. So it is heartbreaking if I have to cancel Saturday. It's heartbreaking. If there is one solution that you have for me for not canceling Saturday, I'll take it. Because also it's a problem of, the problem of image and reputation, not the concern, safety first. But if there's a way for those artists to perform after all those months, 2 years of not being able to make a living in what they're doing, I'd like to see.
I don't know if you heard me mention, but I would urge you to talk to the fire marshal for our town as soon as possible.
If this is a solution for you guys, I'm determined.
The only solution as the planning board that we can approve of is going through the proper channels.
And-
You have to understand, regardless of how we personally feel about you and what you do for the town, we have to treat everyone equally under the law. And if we were to make exceptions for you, suddenly the next person would want exceptions. Suddenly we've got a lot of things that aren't good for the town in here.
And as an employed by the town board, there's a certification that Bill and I have from the state in code enforcement, and then there's the job that employs us, and I mean, I feel like my hands are tied in
No,
a
no,
different
I-
department, but same
I
as
understand.
them. However, as an artist too, I mean, don't they get paid regardless of performance? They'll still get paid?
No.
Also, what if we were able to?
Yeah, can you go to another venue?
Yes.
Well, that's
Yes.
the option.
Okay, great.
You don't know yet?
Can we then table this for tomorrow, since the planning board's given their time to explain what they need?
Yes.
And then
Can I talk
we'll
to you
discuss
guys?
tomorrow amongst our office, but if you do have another space. But for the planning board
We don't
and
know
the
yet.
site plan review,
Woodstock has two.
Okay, well, we have frequently present in many of the churches within Phoenicia. If we were able to accomplish that, and one of the churches is willing to let us come in and do it, is that fine?
they're here to review a site plan, I'm right? I just wanted to
Yes,
give you
we're
guys address.
only here talking about this church.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, and we'll
Thank
do
you
that
so
tomorrow.
much.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays.
Yes.
I call you.
We'll talk tomorrow, all three of us.
Don't shoot before we.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sorry that they didn't have an application, it was so emergency, like I needed it to be heard, right? I don't know. I don't know what I do for this.
The liability between that or CO.
And I don't know what I do. Oh, sure, the board?
That's right, especially here.
So are you ready?
County liaison report?
Really?
But they're visiting.
I don't have an official liaison report, Shandaken project proposal came up.
Sorry, Pete, sorry.
Hey, excuse me, guys. do you mind?
Sorry.
Thank you.
The Alta County Planning Board did vote on the application at our last meeting, and you got a verbal, was it?
Yeah, he just said, I don't know, I mean, you were there, but he just said it was great, but there's a couple of,
It's kind of the issue is not with the buildings that are proposed, the issue is with the land use, which really has nothing to do with the project itself. But they were not able to separate the two, and so they're going to have some issues that are raised, but the project itself looks great.
Good ahead. We're done.
I'd like to make a motion.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
This is Bill. Guys, sorry, that got crazy.
Happy Christmas and Merry New Year.
We'll see each other in January, I don't know yet, because I didn't get your
January, I can
password.
tell you, 3, 4, 5, January 12th.
Sorry, I took my mask off. Yes, you're right.
I'm a good trip.
Bill, thanks for coming out. You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks for coming out, Bill.
Bill, nice to meet you.
Mr. Samstada. He's already quit, by the way. He quit. He quit.
Did you make it? Did you make you quit? Don't do
I
that.
swear to you, he's quit.
I thought.
And he's doing a great job, so I can make him come in. I swear to God, quit. I don't think we should.
Well, don't accept it.
He's going in second, he's not staying on his own.